We have the pleasure of hearing from Joe Conley, who is a solutions architect here at Bonterra. Joe has been with Bonterra for 2.5 years, where he manages a team of solutions architects. And with his experience as a teacher, presenter, writer, and fundraiser, Joe helps organizations communicate their ideas and identity to their constituents. And Joe lives just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, with his wife and their 2 children. So I want to go ahead and pass it to you, Joe. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon here.
Great. Hey, thank you so much, all. Very excited to be here and very excited to talk to you about our solution and really about how it's going to help you organize and communicate with your supporters. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and just a couple of things to note as we're talking through. Thing number one, there is not a snowball's chance in heck that I'm going to be able to keep up with the chat. So please absolutely keep using the chat to talk to one another, may ask you some questions through it. But if you've got a question, please go ahead and make sure to put that in the Q&A. I've also got my colleague Colin here, who's going to be helping in that Q&A as well. So please absolutely ask those questions. Now, let's talk a little bit about our Bonterra Essentials tool that we're going to be looking at today. Some of you may know it as Network for Good. In fact, you'll see Network for Good in some of the language as we start to move towards the new branding. So I'm going to try my best to call it Bonterra Essentials, but I'm probably going to slip up too. Now, importantly, this tool is really targeted for really one of three groups. One, those organizations that are looking for their very first CRM. So that's going to be organizations that historically have been using Excel. Maybe you've been using something like QuickBooks, the accounts receivable module, to function as a CRM. Maybe it's an Airtable, but really looking for their first CRM. Second group are going to be organizations that are also using very basic tools. So maybe like a GiveButter or a Little Green Light, and are looking for an improvement. And then finally, group number three, the least common group, but they still do exist. Sometimes organizations that are sort of downshifting into a more basic software. So maybe you're an organization that's using like a Bloomerang or a Donor Perfect. You're finding that you're not using all of the functionality, and you're thinking it's kind of annoying that they're requiring you to use MailChimp or Constant Contact rather than a native email system. So you're shifting down into this tool. So that's really the audience that I'm going to be talking to in this presentation. So basically, that is to say, if you're coming from like a major healthcare foundation and you're trying to decide if this tool is the right tool for your 20 hospital system, this probably isn't. That's going to be over the in our Every Action or our Bonterra fundraising and engagement tools. And Ashley and Colin, I know Sally's looking for a little support there. I think it looks like Ashley's nodding at me, so she is on it, Sally. So let's hop in and start to talk about what we want to talk about today. Really organizing the data and using that organization, using that information to effectively communicate with our supporters. As we're going through and we're talking about these different communication methods that we're using because we've organized our data so well, I don't want you to feel like these are the only way to do it or the one way to do it. In fact, as we're lifting up some of these different communication styles, or communication channels, excuse me, I'm going to try to pull out from the less traditional, the less textbook examples, and really talk about some of the interesting ways to use these communication tools. Part of what you can see as we're going through or think about this is kind of like an example of what it would be like should you come over to our Fundraising Essentials tool and, as part of it, engage with our fundraising consultants. And that's one of the two things that makes this tool unique, not just the tool itself, but that with it, you can have a fundraising coach, someone whose whole job it is to help you set up your fundraising programs. So let's start by talking about some of our communication tools. Right out of our Bonterra Essentials, you can do group videos, you can do email blasts, you can do text messages, and you can do direct mail. What's going to be important, though, is that as we're doing this, we've got our data set up such that we're not just blasting everything to everyone, because that is a huge waste of time, a huge waste of money, and it alienates us from our donors who are like, hey, they just keep blasting me asking for money, and that's not helpful. So the first one I want to talk about is direct mail. Now, when it comes to creating a direct mail out of our system, the first thing we really need to do is plan. And the reason we really need to plan is we need to walk back from when we need that letter to hit people's mailboxes, right? Because direct mail can kind of be a longer process. So, first question you have to ask yourself, am I doing all of this work in-house, or are we using a mailing agency? If I'm doing all of this work in-house, it's a little bit easier for me to set up timelines, right? Because I'm printing it right there in the printer, or I'm taking it over to a Kinko's and I've got more time, more control. On the other hand, if we're doing this through a mail house, well, there I need to talk to them. I need to find out from them if I need this letter to hit mailboxes at this time. How far back do they need to receive that list of the people who are supposed to receive this mail? Cool. So, who do we want to have receive our direct mail? Do we want to send it to everybody? Probably not, because direct mail is ludicrously expensive. It is so expensive. And if we just start sending that direct mail to everybody, well, we're probably going to not see a good. So instead, because our data is well organized, because I don't have to filter through a bunch of different tabs on a spreadsheet, I can very easily send it to a more targeted group. Maybe in this case, I'm going to send it out to my Libunts. Now, doing a Libun poll right now I was going to say April, but it's actually May. We can no longer say it's going to be May in that Justin Timberlake voice because it already is. But I'm going to use that as an example. Those of you who've been around the block with fundraising might be thinking that, hey, Joe, you just kind of lied to us because less than 5 minutes ago, you told us you weren't going to use those textbook examples. But a Libunt for a direct mail is kind of textbook. And you're right. And the reason I lied to you is because direct mail is a little bit of a special case because it's just so dang expensive, right? Direct mail is not where we're going to go and reach out to those long shots, those people who we don't think are going to give. It's going to be one where we're going to specifically target those people who we think we do have a good chance of bringing that gift in from. And again, Libund is a great example, especially because Libunts do have a pretty good chance of being recovered, and we want to make sure we get that in. Now, I just talked about timing, and Libunts is an especially important example of why timing becomes important. Ideally, that Libunt mailing is going out at the end of the year. So ideally, it's going to be something that we're hitting in people's mailboxes sometime in December, hopefully earlier in December, so the time to actually get the gift in before the end of the year, but sometime in December. Now, if we want to be really fancy with it, we're not pulling that final list until after Giving Tuesday, because we want to make sure that those people who give on Giving Tuesday don't accidentally be called Libunts. Because not that it's a dirty word, but if you just gave, it's not fun to be told that you haven't. So that's why it's so important to make sure that all of our systems are working together. And in this case, they are. If you set up a Giving Tuesday appeal right there at the end of the year, as soon as those gifts come in, people will be pulled off that Libunt list. So in this case, I'm going to see those numbers drop on Giving Tuesday from 43 to 42 to 41 till I get to the correct number and I can pull it immediately. Now, to be fair, that might be still a little bit too late for us to get it into a mail house, but for certainly something in-house, we will have time. So let me take a deep breath there. What questions are we thinking about with direct mail before we talk a little bit about email? How filterable are the tools? Teddy, they are very filterable. So we're going to be doing a couple more live examples here as we go through for some of the other communication pieces, but we certainly start you off with some recommended filters. You've got the ability to save filters. And you can see some of the examples we've used in other demonstrations, like birthdays coming in within 30 days, haven't opened an email in the last 6 months, the head of households, right, to make that easy, total donation amount in the calendar year. And then, of course, want to get fancy, you can create your own. And we'll scroll right through. You can see we have quite a few options. And we're going to use some multiple condition examples in just a little bit here. Awesome, awesome, team. So under that first example, direct mail was very textbook, both in terms of the grouping and just direct mail in general is very textbook. Let's now talk, though, about email, and let's move outside of the most textbook examples. A fantastic use of email is for updates. Because at the end of the day, I think fundraising really comes down to really one process. Hey, donor, you care about this thing, and we're going to help with this thing in the world. They make a donation. Next step, hey, donor, we helped with this thing in the world, and here is our impact. The less textbook piece of that, of course, is really tracking that impact. So when we talk about impact, I'm not just talking about outputs, right? I'm not just talking about pounds of food delivered, number of students who have gone through our classes, again, classes broadly defined, not just even number of acreages of land protected, but really that next step. What is the overall impact that has? So because this is so important, and I don't just emphasize it because Bonterra also has a tool called impact management. Who here wants to volunteer? Raise your hand, virtually, of course, in the chat, and let us know if you're having a hard time identifying impact, right? Saying, Joe, we do a pretty good job of talking about the outputs, right? The pounds of food delivered, but we're struggling with impact so that as a team together, we can brainstorm that a little. I'll take a sip of my water here as we're stopping and thinking. And if you're taking a little bit to type, no worries, take your time. I have in past employment both been a teacher and a security guard at a hospital, so I have plenty of patience.
Saw some raised hands here, Joe.
Oh, okay, yeah,
But
please
people
pop
definitely
those
agree.
in the chat of the Q&A. Oh, and I see some questions here.
Looks like Dana mentioned that explaining impact in a language that meets the need.
Yes, no, for sure. I do see a couple other questions here, so let me go through them real quick. Andy, just confirm for me that you mean donor perfect and not past perfect. Past perfect is bringing me back to my days of studying Greek, which I assure you I've entirely forgotten. except enough to reference that. And Megan says it answered. And Caitlin talks about, what if your target population donor base is older? 20% of our donors from the last few years don't use email. Does that change the whole return on investment conversation? So Caitlin, in that case, I would say it really doesn't, in that you're still going to get the same low, direct mail is still going to be very expensive. So you still need to be very intentional about who you're targeting with direct mail. That's, again, don't hear me say don't use direct mail. Direct mail still is, for low-level donors, the #1 channel. It still brings in more than email. It still brings in more than online donation forms, right? Direct mail is not dead. Direct mail is far from dead. But what I don't want to do with direct mail is, I don't want direct mail to be what I do with my long shots, right? With the people who I really don't think are going to make a donation. Now, there are always caveats. For example, if you're a big national nonprofit with name recognition, they still do a lot of acquisition direct mail. Again, the ROI is lower, but they're doing all the math to figure out it's still worth it for those acquisitions. But they can also risk fronting that money out front. And that name recognition does make people more likely to actually open the envelope, take a read, and trust the organization enough to write a check. All right, so let's then talk about, and if you are typing out sort of an example of saying, hey, we are struggling with communicating impact, is, and I would love to sort of group think what to do about it, definitely drop that in the chat. Interesting, Andy. So Andy says, our staff reference it as Past Perfect is used for collection management, museum artifacts, archival material, exhibit information. Sure. So Andy, that's, I can't even compare that, because that's almost not even apples to oranges. That's like apples to cars, right? It's a completely different system. So our system is probably why I hadn't heard of it as an actual tool. But our system doesn't do any of it. We don't do collection management. We don't do archives. This really is a very focused fundraising and engagement tool. It is for raising money from donors, donation forms, fundraising events, emails for that purpose, right? So that's exactly what this tool is for. And I see question here, can this track mailing list performance? It absolutely can. But let's talk about this email and then sort of go back around and talk about then how we're going to use reporting to understand some of the efficaciousness. So what I want to do is I want to reach out to donors who have actually donated to a specific thing, right? Because what I want to do is I want to say, hey, donors who donated to this specific thing, here is the impact that you're having on having donated to that specific thing, right? Again, we're not blasting email to everybody, because we have the data about the donors, about what they actually have done and what they have actually cared about. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and create a filter. And I'm going to go ahead here we go. I want to find somebody who, in this case, donated to a specific designation. Because when I reach back out to them, equals, and I'll pick one of our designations, maybe in this case, our COVID relief fund. So now I can see the 42 people who have donated specifically to the COVID relief fund. I don't have to do a bunch of filtering. I don't have to do that kind of work, like on spreadsheets. Instead, it's all right here. And right within my system, so not having to take it out to a MailChimp or a Constant Contact, I'm going to send them an email blast. We can go ahead and add that email blast, and we'll go through. We'll call it update on COVID relief. This will flag as a newsletter. But of course, you can flag things as event invitations, as creating your own email, right? It's just to help with the layout, make the process faster. Pick the specific layout that we want. Let's do something nice and contemporary. And here's the piece I really want to make sure that we get to, showing you the building tool, right? Because I'll go toe to toe in terms of the WYSIWYG, in terms of what you can do, just as good as anything you'd be doing on Constant Contact or MailChimp, with the advantage of it all being in one system. That includes having some robust merge tags. So when you're communicating to that person, you're communicating to them like a real, live, walking, talking human being, and not just a checkbook. Now, in this case, what we're really going to be emphasizing in this email is not, please give more. That'll come. We're going to make asks, don't worry. But what we're really going to be emphasizing here is this is what we've accomplished with the support that you've already given us. Really, really want to make sure that the heavy, heavy emphasis is on that. We accomplished this thing. Now, as part of that too, we need the appropriate subject line. The appropriate subject line is going to tell them immediately that we're giving them an update. Or we hit a milestone. We wanted you to know that, boom, whatever it is, we achieved X, right? So that they know that's what we're talking about. Next, we're going to go ahead and pull in from the custom list before we review our email and send it out. Let us exit here. Flag that just so it lets me exit. And we'll send out that email. Now, it was asked above by Matthew, can you track? Absolutely. We track performance via giving. Now, right now, we're looking at just all of the giving, how much everyone is given. But if you were here at our last session about a month ago where I was talking about events, one of the most important things I emphasized was you need to have a goal for the thing that you're doing. In this case, and with this email, of course, our ultimate goal is to bring in more support. So what I would do is I would time travel. I would go ahead and time travel for maybe 90 days, depending on exactly what my process is, right? And then I would go in and I would find people who had received that email or potentially opened it, right? Depending on how I want to include that. And then run that giving list. Because I want to see, of those people that I sent this email to, how many of them actually then gave, right? That's what's starting to give me my ROI. Not just talking about, we're hoping people give, but we're actually reaching back and tracking it. Because at the end of the day, one of the things we have to know is that email isn't free. Oh, sorry about that, Dana. We have to know that email isn't free. It doesn't cost us money, right? It's not like I have to pay 5 cents for every email. But what it does affect is our reputation. And now here at Bonterra, we take sending reputation extremely seriously. In fact, we've got a whole team that's dedicated to it. But even our team of very smart engineers can't overcome terrible behavior if you're engaging in terrible behavior. Now, what is terrible behavior? One of the big ones, of course, is just really clickbaity sounding subject lines, things that tell Gmail, like, ew, that looks gross. I don't want to engage with that. So that's number one. But number two is blasting out content to everybody all the time that they don't want. So they end up just deleting without opening, end up unsubscribing, right? In that sense, in the sense of your sender reputation, email is not free. So really want to make sure that we're leaning into the efficacy of those emails. But again, not every email needs to be something that is an ask instead. So let me take a deep breath there. What are your thoughts on what we've talked about here with email before we move on to talk a little bit about video? Perfect, Andy. So, Andy, I see your question there. Andy says, I'm looking for a system to use for donor cultivation. I suspect we would keep Past Perfect, but I'm exploring more donor management capabilities and fundraising gift, ask research, and training for board members and staff in addition to record keeping. Yeah, exactly. So the Past Perfect stuff, like I said, I hadn't even heard of that software. That is not apples to apples, it's not even really apples to oranges for us. But in terms of donor cultivation, donor management, fundraising, this system is where it's at. Until, of course, you then need to move up to a greater system like our Bonterra fundraising and engagement, which is as organizations grow, as their fundraising continues to become even more refined, they often graduate up from this tool to that tool. Fantastic question, Kimberly. Can someone unsubscribe from a list? And does that need to be manually added? That's a fantastic question because that tells me you actually care about your donors' preferences and we don't want to just keep blasting all of this information. And yes, the answer is absolutely they can unsubscribe, and it's not something that you need to then like manually change in their database. It's something that they can do themselves.
Hey, Joe, we have a
Diane
question. Oh, sorry about that.
has
I
a
was just going to tell
no,
you Diane's question.
yeah. And just so you know, team, like especially here, I know a thing or two about this, or I'm really cocky, one of those two. But the collective fundraising knowledge in here is so. As these questions come through, don't feel like I'm the only one who has to answer them. Diane here is a great question, and I would love. I'm going to answer it. Don't worry, I'm not passing the buck, but would also love to hear your other thoughts. So Diane asks, we came across a dated listserv of previous event attendees supporters. What are your thoughts on us sending an email out to reconnect? I would say I think that as long as that's not something that you then send a lot of emails out to try to reconnect, I think that that's a great idea. And I would even say, especially if that event is coming up again, certainly, yeah, I think you absolutely should. The issue when it comes to email, right? It's not like one risk is it going to blow everything. Um, a try here, a try there, kind of reaching out to some people who are a little bit less engaged. Email is great for that. What I want to caution against are treating your email like some of those like for-profit companies, like you buy one thing from their website and they email you every single day. Like those get unsubscribed, right? But something like this that's really targeted, really specific, yeah, I think that that is not a huge risk, and I think it's worth reaching out. It's worth a try. I'm also assuming when you say a dated listserv, you're not talking about like 20 years ago. We're talking about them having email addresses relevant enough that you can connect. Yeah, I think that that's worth trying. Great question. Edwina asks, hey, so is there a way to know if the email was read or deleted before being read? Yes, there is. So our system is tracking those open rates and unsubscribe rates. Now, one thing to note, and this is we're going to get a little bit wonky with it, but Apple has changed its policies, and that's relevant for any tool that's open on an app or any email that's open on an Apple device. So it doesn't just have to be through their email client, where it auto opens the emails. So open rate is becoming a less valuable metric overall. It's I wouldn't say throw it out entirely yet, but really prioritize more like click-through rate. How many of the donors are actually clicking through the email and not just trying to go based on open rate. As it's Apple that's doing this so far, but there's all reason to suspect that's going to continue through other providers. So I think open rate is going to continue to be or become less and less of a valuable metric. And things like click-through rate are going to become more important, or even things like donation rate, which is one of the advantages of having everything all in one system because that reporting can be done. All right, team. Let's go on to our next form of communication. In this case, video. Now, obviously, video is fantastic because it is so much more personalized. And kind of the textbook example of a video is sending a video, a thank you video, right? Now, where it becomes kind of interesting is that when it comes to video, one of the first choices we want to make in how we're going to use this video is, are we looking for a more polished video, well edited, that's going to be sort of in not portrait, but in landscape mode, that horizontal? Or do we want to use something that's in vertical, that looks more ad hoc, that looks like somebody just picked up their iPhone and answered it like this? There's a place for both. I would say that, for example, really ad hoc thank yous often work better if it's vertical. It often looks more authentic. Again, whether it's somebody doing it selfie style or you're recording, that's a great way for a thank you. Now, obviously, the number one most important thing to remember is the privacy of the people that you're serving. So it's important that if you are looking to have thank yous coming from the population that you serve, that it is appropriate. In fact, I can see Colin there looking at me. His background is in human services, where going around and just filming the people you're serving, not always the best thing to do, as he's shaking his head. That doesn't mean you can never do it. You just want to be very intentional. One example of an organization that does it extremely well is the Eastern Massachusetts YMCA. As Ashley said, I come from that area, so I get their emails. And they do job training. And so when somebody actually gets a job, they ring a bell, there's a video of it, and they send it out to say, hey, look, this person just completed our program. They've got a job. It's very exciting, right? So you can certainly show people, but just be very intentional about that. Let's not talk about that, though, because I said we're going to try to avoid the most textbook. We want to talk about other ways to engage. And I want to give you an example here for both the horizontal, the more polished, and then the vertical. And that's around events. If you're like, man, Joe, I would really love to know a lot more about the event capability of the system and things I need to consider during an event, check out our previous one of these webinars, because that's exactly what I talked about a month ago. And the page that's going to go out where you can access the recording of this, it has all of those videos. So if you want a real deep dive into events, our previous conversation is fantastic for that. But let's say that event happened, and now we want to send something out to all the people who attended. I don't want to have to pull that from a spreadsheet. I don't want to have to pull that from another system. I want to have to be able to pull that right out of our system. So here's what I would do. I would head right into create a new filter. And I would say, I want somebody who purchased tickets to an event. Which event? Well, let's say it was to our April gala. Gala, I hear both. I can grab that group now and I can send them a video. what video am I going to send all of those people? For that one, what I might do is I might quick slash together some video from the event itself. So have it be somebody's job, go through with the camera, interview a couple people, big panorama of the gala itself, get a couple of shots of whatever personality we have running the live auction, saying some of their silly things, slice it together into a quick 30-second video and send that right out so that they then continue on the good vibes, the good feeling of the event, right? Now, I want to do that pretty quick. Fortunately, at this point, even 14-year-olds can quickly slash together vertical video. So we can do that relatively quickly. And if you can't, ask your 14-year-old, I'm sure that they can, and get that out to continue to ride, like I said, the good vibes of the event. But what about that nicer, polished video where you've got that really good that you actually had at the gala, right? Many of you in your galas, you'll have that video there that plays. It's a highlight reel. It's really nice. You spend a lot of time on it, excuse me. But but then it never goes anywhere else, right? Nobody else ever sees it. It's just at that event. Let's get more use out of that particular event video and the work that we did. So in this case, I might do something like purchase tickets to an event does not equal. So they didn't come to that gala. But let's go ahead and add another condition. They did have a last donation date greater than beginning of the year. So what's that telling me? These are people who did not attend that gala, but did give a gift this year. They're engaged. And in fact, if I was really going to get fancy with it, maybe I would go back a full year. So anybody who's given within the past 365 days. Or maybe I would get more specific. Maybe they need to have given, or maybe given, or because we can do some fun grouping, opened an email within the past 365 days, right? But using this tool to very easily grab that group. So in fact, if we wanted to, we could do something like opened an email blast email in the last, let's say, let's go into months, 12 months. Then we can even add grouping if we need to. Oh, I should have put that into the grouping, excuse me. But had that right there as part of the group so that we're getting either donated within this year, opened an email within the past, what did I put in, 12 months, so that we've got that specific group. Now, again, what I'm really hoping to emphasize here, and you all can tell me whether I'm succeeding or failing, but what I'm really hoping to emphasize here is that because all of this data is together in one place, email opens, giving, event attendance, we can start to use that data to target people to the with the messaging that's going to be relevant to them specifically. And we can do it without having to try and combine a bunch of different spreadsheets and get really good at like VLOOKUP or something to end up with our particular list. Want to be able to do it because the data's together here in one place. So last group we've got here, communication, is text messages. And honestly, I feel like I'm doing a lot of work. I'm feeling pretty tired. And in fact, I don't even know what the point is anymore. So I'm going to have a little existential crisis over here. And you tell me, who do you want to text? What group are you thinking, man, if I had texting right within my system, this is a use that I'd have for texting?
I think folks might need a bit of a Kickstarter, Joe, but let's see.
No, I
Can
know
we
too, typing, I am, Lord knows I'm a slow typer. So let me, I love a few of these. So, um, Scott's question, to comply with federal communication laws, don't we have to have permission from the recipients to send text blasts? Yes, that is 100% accurate. So one of the good filters we can think about here, Scott, as we're going through, is have they opted into receiving texts? Now, best practice, every single opportunity you can, give them an opportunity to opt in. Every single opportunity, give them an opportunity. Yeah, that works. So on all of the event registrations, all of the donation forms, any of your peer-to-peer forms, give them that opportunity so you can reach out to them. And fantastic. So let's talk about two of these. Teresa says, remind people of the deadline. And Jolene says, texting your major donors. So if we're going to go ahead and grab a few of those groups, reminding of a deadline, one deadline might be an event coming up, whether that's a volunteer event or again, a fundraising event, and head right on to people who purchased that ticket. Can run that list, and out that will go. On the other hand, if we're looking to people who are major donors, there are a couple of different ways that I might do that. Now, one, of course, is looking at the overall donation amount, maybe donation amount from last calendar year. And I'll say it's greater than $5,000. Now, in this case, it can be in one gift of $5,000, two gifts of $2,500. It could technically be 5,000 gifts of $1. Now, that would be kind of rude from the major donor, but if it happens, it happens. And we'd be able to find them. Now, the other thing to note is you also do have the ability to create custom fields. And one of those custom fields I might create and then, of course, bulk apply, because absolutely our system can bulk apply, would be major donor prospect. In that case, I don't have to worry about the gift dates or the certain amounts. Instead, I would just pull this person is a major giver or a major giving prospect. What might we want to text our major donors, though? What kind of thing might be interesting to them? And Teddy just answered that question there. Teddy asked, are the field choices hard-coded or do they have custom fields? You absolutely can create custom fields. Now, one of the underlying philosophies of this system, which is different than, say, a Salesforce, is that most of the system it comes out of the box ready to go, right? It's not something where you need, like a Salesforce, they just throw you all the materials and say, okay, go ahead and build it. Most of the tools are there for you. Most of the fields are there for you. But obviously, every organization has their own unique tracking needs, and so that's where custom fields come in. But if I wanted to text my major donors, I would probably not just text them sup at 3 in the morning, right? That's going to get a lot of people in trouble. Instead, what I might try and text them is I might reach out to them with special information. What do I mean by special information? Well, one of the things that gets board members or gets major donors excited is when, as a result of their major donations, they get insight into things before everybody else, or things that not everybody else gets. So, one thing I might just text them out is we just had our board meeting and wanted you to know that to date we have raised X amount of dollars, which is exceeding our board's goal by 5%, right? Not like secret or hidden information that we don't want everyone to know, but this is the kind of information that they get first and they get right away. That's going to make them excited. Now, this would be especially true if we were like in the middle of a capital campaign or a capital building project and something had just been built. If we are a school, K-12 or higher ed, and we just won the big game. Sometimes I have to laugh to myself too. That would be the type of information too to text out, right? This big initiative happened, this thing, the kind of thing that feels like breaking, exciting news that they as major donors have special privy knowledge to. And here's the other nice thing when we talk about major donors. I think some organizations feel like they're too small to have a major donor program. And I say phooey to that. And the reason I say phooey to that is while your major donors may not be people who can give $100,000 or more, maybe your major donors are $5,000 or more. There's a lot more people who can give $5,000 to a nonprofit than who can give $100,000. So that means your catchment area is bigger. And those people, if they're trying to give to, say, St. Jude's, they're not going to get the major donor treatment. They're not going to be the ones to get the text messaging. They give to your organization, they can. And so for that reason, you actually have a greater opportunity to give people major donor treatment, even at a smaller level. Because again, I think sometimes too, people feel like, oh, if I have a major donor, I need to take them out to Michelin star restaurants and buy them tickets to the Met or not group tickets, season tickets to the Met or something like that. No, it's just all about within the capacity that they're giving your organization that they feel special. Because that's what a major donor of any size wants to feel. They want to feel special. They want to feel like because they're giving you that $5,000, they're unique in your eyes. So let me answer a couple more of these questions here in the chat. Now, Jen asks, will we have time to visit the database portion? I want to export a list of gifts by type for the last 2 years. So the good news is there is no separate database portion. What you're seeing here is what you get. Now, I don't know if that question is based off of like a background in the Razor's Edge, and you're used to the database view and the web view and having to sit on top of each other and jump back and forth. But that's not the world we live in here in this tool. So if, for example, I needed gifts for the past 2 years, you could just head right over to Giving, create a filter. And in this case, I would go ahead and donation date is less than or equal to. And now if I really wanted that range, could go way back, or we could pull in a particular range, like depending on how you're determining or what you're calling 2 years ago. Donation date then would be greater than, going back 2 years. Run that search. And we could find that information and go all the way through to see those gifts and export them. Now, I would be curious about what the end goal of exporting is versus doing the like work right there in the system to do that analysis. But we can sort of talk more about that should you move forward and decide, yes, I want to have a one-on-one conversation about this tool. And Gregory's asking, hey, if you get the message back from an email blast that didn't go through because the list had too many bounce backs, how should you remove addresses from that list? Well, there'd be a couple of ways to remove addresses from that list, Greg. One would be to head back into the list itself and further refine it. So if I'm deciding that maybe we're going to require them, if I said it opened an email within the last 12 months, maybe bring it down to 8 months. Or if we're looking at upper level givers anyway, and I said gave a gift of $1,000 or more, maybe I up it to 2,000 as a way to pull that down. Would probably be the first way that I would go about it. So I know we've got 7 minutes left here. Want to give people a time for final thoughts, ideas, or full-blown mutinies. If you want to go in the chat and say, hey, Joe, I think everything you said is terrible and I disagree with all of it, bring that on too. But what can we help you with? What would you like to talk about in the last 6 minutes we have here?
Yeah, thank you, Joe, for this afternoon, and thank you so much for your presentation. It's definitely been helpful, I know, for everyone here. And yeah, like Joe said, folks, please feel free to pile in those last couple of questions here while we have the last couple remaining minutes here. And I did want to just mention that if you think your question might be better suited for a one-on-one conversation or a looking for a personalized demonstration, just want to launch one last quick poll here to kind of see if that might be the case. And like I said earlier, kind of get someone on our team here to have that one-on-one conversation with you. So we'll have that up while folks, like I said, get their last minute questions in here.
And Teresa, that's a very fair question. So Teresa says cost. Now, as a solutions architect, I'm forbidden from talking about costs. That is something, if you're interested in that cost, please do flag on the poll to reach out for it, because the people over on the sales side get very, very angry when I talk about numbers. I'm glad, Alma. Thank you. And like I said, if thinking about this kind of stuff, like how do we use strategy, who should we be targeting, what different channels should we be leveraging, that is a big part of why right in our system, as part of this, you do have the ability to work with a personal fundraising coach. Awesome, Edwina. Obviously not awesome that you missed opportunities, but the good news is you keep developing, can keep working, and that's something we're all doing, right? We're all looking to iteratively get. Hey, you're welcome, Dana. I'm glad you enjoyed the tool. I'm pretty proud of it, right? I think it's a very solid tool. Again, if you are coming from a large organization, you've got a team of 10, you've got a team of 20. I once did on-site training for an organization that had just 100 major gift officers, let alone fundraising staff. This is probably not going to work for an organization with 100 major gift officers, right? That's not what this tool is designed. And if you are thinking, hey, I would love to have a tool that does a lot more than this, we've got one of those as well called Bonterra Fundraising Engagement. Oh, that's awesome, Keith. Colin is an expert in that tool. I don't know if it's Colin who you're going to be meeting with, but he is one of our experts in
Maybe I'll see you on the other side, Keith.
the
Awesome, Joe. Well, looks like there might not be any more outstanding questions. Do you want to give a couple people, well, a couple more seconds here? But again, want to thank you so much for your presentation. It was such a pleasure to have you this afternoon. And just want to thank everyone for your time and engagement this afternoon. We definitely look forward to seeing you at our next session. But yeah, while it looks like we don't have any outstanding questions, just want to thank everyone for their time this afternoon. And thank you, Joe.